We're back on Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Brenda Masson, and this morning we are talking about Christmas traditions and roots and solstice and all kinds of fun things for the holiday season. This is kind of the holiday season Fresh Waves. So, Laurie, you've been doing some research on the Celtic side of the Christmas traditions, and it has its good, wonderful, beautiful, joyous things, but then there's the other side as well.
Yes, well, the Celts like to look at the dark side of things sometimes. I mean, we look at our poets and artists, and definitely there's no shirking of the dark, would you say? Anyway.
Top of the morning to you.
Well as the wonderful celebration, you've got to look at the very interesting... there's the Cailleach Burr, who's the skinny blue-faced hag. And all summer long, she'd been shut up inside a grey stone, lying under a holly tree. But on the eve of Samhain, that's Halloween, she sprang up out of the stone, with her black eyes glittering like cold pebbles in her pinched blue face. She seized her staff and went about the countryside, striking at the earth to kill all green growth. Her breath frosted the windows and set icicles on branches and the corners of roofs, and when she sang her terrible winter song into the sky, the words froze into snowflakes and whirled down to cover the bare trees and mound deep drifts against houses and barns. The red-berried holly was one of the few plants to survive unchanged through her icy dominion, so people would set branches of holly over their doors and windows and mantels to persuade her to stay out. And on their doorsteps they left harvest offerings of vegetables and fruit, so that she would eat there instead of storming into their kitchens in a whirl of hail and snow.
Wow.
Little reading from The Boggart by Susan Cooper, who's a Canadian author.
Okay.
It's a children's book, but true, yeah, the dark side. But then we also had, when I was with the Irish Players in Toronto, we had the Wren Boys.
Oh, yes. I looked them up. I've never heard of them before. Tell us about the Wren Boys.
Well, the Wren Boys they drag themselves out of bed on the early morning after Christmas celebration. So it's Boxing Day, and go from door to door, entertaining people and asking for money, food, and drink to help to bury the wren, who has unfortunately died that day, and I've no idea exactly why, but I know that the wren was a revered bird in the Celtic pantheon. The wren was very crafty and clever, and actually flew higher than the eagle because it took a ride on the eagle's back when they were having the contest of who could fly the farthest. And the wren rode on the eagle's back, and the eagle got tired and had to go back. The wren flew up and then beat the eagle. So that's all I know about the wren. But we would dress up crazy with blackened cork on our faces. We were mumming. We were had all the musicians and singers and storytellers, and went to the different homes of Irish people in Toronto, and I just had a great time.
Well, it says here in this little thing that they actually, on St. Stephen's Day, which is Boxing Day, they would put the wren in a net or on the top of the leader's head, which is kind of interesting. And the song that they would sing at the door is a penny or tuppence would do it no harm, meaning that if you gave, then the wren was going to be saved, and they wouldn't kill it. So that's nice. I'd give them a tuppence, that's for sure.
And the wren is the king of birds.
The wren, the king of all birds, on Stephen's Day was caught in the furs.
The clothes were all torn, her shoes were all worn. Up with the kettle and down with the pan. Give us a penny to bury the wren. If you gave a feather from the bird to patrons of good luck. There you go. Wow. Isn't that funny? And to have never heard of it before, and you even know the song.
Well, we chat the song as we went along. And our wren was from a dollar store wren, on a stick.
Yeah. I bought my husband one as a Christmas ornament last year, because we always give an ornament, and it had the king crown on it and things like that. So,
king of all birds.
Yeah.
On Stephen's Day was caught in the furs.
However, I think now he thinks that means he's the king of the house.
So
next year he's not getting a wren this year.
I don't know.
And then in January they have the Wren Ball. which is also the same kind of thing. The celebration continues. And I know that this line comes from a song, one of the Christmas carols. If you haven't a penny, a halfpenny will do. If you haven't a halfpenny, then God bless you.
you.
Yes, I know that line. I can't remember what song it comes from. Probably Good King Wenceslas or something like that.
No, it's not. Which one is that?
I know the song. Then God bless you. I remember that song too, and
God
it is
bless
Irish.
you.
And you know what? I know it's Irish because it's on the Irish Rovers Christmas album.
There you go.
Yep, that and Mrs. Finnegan's figgy pudding.
Yep.
Have you ever tried to make that?
Figgy pudding?
Yes.
I don't know. It's probably like that fruit cake, right? I don't like it.
I've tried. I tried to make it once for the family, and once was enough.
It's got a lot of suet in it.
Yes.
It's basically fat with
Figs
and dried stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yuck. I tried it once, and that was it.
So bring us a figgy pudding and bring us a figgy pudding. Bring us a figgy pudding and bring it right here.
Yes. We won't stop until we get some and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we won't stop until we get some.
Well, you know what? Lard and fat actually tastes good sometimes. I wouldn't like it with figs, but, it does taste good. What does make food flavorful, which is...
And it certainly keeps your energy up in the cold.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
So it serves a couple of purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I like Reese's Market and Bakery, who provides us the muffins in the studio. I like their sticky toffee pudding, which also has British roots, but man, is that stuff good. Sticky toffee pudding. And it's fig-based as well. It is. It's got figs in it, because figs are sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And it's lovely. Yum, yum, yum.
I'm doing some vegan baking this Yule because my kids have friends who are vegan, and it's challenging.
It is.
So I made a beautiful pie crust with coconut oil and pecans and sugar, and then I'm filling it with a pumpkin filling with all the right seasonings for pumpkin, with our nutmeg and ginger and cinnamon and all that. But how to make a gel? Well, there's agar, or there's cornstarch, but you're not using eggs and cream. So it's going to be brilliant. But
I have a friend in the UK who's a vegan, and when I stay with her, I do vegan out of respect for her, even if we go out for a meal or something. And it's not as hard as you think, but I would prefer somebody else to do the work, and I'll just
yeah.
All right, so just on the one last note of the Wren here, it does happen many times in Europe on January 6th, which is the end of Christmas, whatever. That's the 12th day. In Wales and Pembrokeshire. Do you say Pembrokeshire or just, I don't know. Anything that ends in shire, sometimes you miss out the middle words, like Worcestershire, when you're supposed to take out all the syllables.
How would you say Pembrokeshire in Welsh? Pembrokeshire.
Yeah,
Pembrokeshire.
Yeah,
probably.
And the Wren in the Netherlands is called the Winter King.
There you go.
And also has a lot of association with Druid rituals. And the Druids were travelers. Boy, did they get around. They weren't just in England or Ireland. They traveled all over the place.
They tend to be bards and...
Yeah, the bards and bring the news and all that kind of thing. I always said that that's where my soul is. The origins are in a bard. If I was in ancient times, I would be a bard, except I wouldn't be allowed to because I don't think the bards were women. But
they were.
Were they?
They were.
Okay, that would be me.
Yeah, it was just the interpretation in the last few centuries that were done by men that said that the Druids had to be men. No, they were women Druids
as well
as warriors and
the Celts
teachers.
were big on the women being the warriors, the
Absolutely.
lawyers, the whatever. They just equal.
Because the Druids actually are a religion unto themselves in their own right, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
And were they considered to be witches? Because I know that there's a lot of power in the Druids, and that the ancient kings were said to have consulted their Druid leaders for guidance because the Druids were seers. And you have a big family history of seers in your family, Betty Jane.
I do. But Druids, they tended to be advisors, and the rumor is that Prince Charles has links to Druidry in England, and the Queen does as well. Not sure. I've never seen him in a circle. I've never seen him at Stonehenge, but I I do know that's the rumor. And if you think about back to some of the royal weddings that we've had recently, there's always a little bit of a pagan symbolism in them. Princess Kate, or Kate Middleton, she had a sprig from the Holy Thorn in Glastonbury in her bouquet.
Ooh.
Oh.
Before it was desecrated and chopped down. But yes.
Interesting.
So yeah, there is some relevance there. And I have a lot of friends and things like that are druids, and they tend to be bards and teachers and healers and what have you. They don't tend to have what we would call 9-to-5 jobs.
No.
They're more arts based.
Interesting. Very interesting. And the druids, I mean, there are, when you go down to medieval times, even downtown, they make reference to the man in the hood. He's got the pointed hood, and he comes in and he gives the king the foresight into what's about to transpire and tells him to get his armies ready because they are about to be invaded. And that could be seeing into the future. It could also be the fact that he happened to be there a month ago and saw them getting their armies ready, and then comes across as this mystical guy who tells you the future, when in fact he just happened to see it. Because in those days, the future took a lot to unfold.
Still does.
Yeah, well, you know what? Sometimes with this new Instagram and all these different social media, you find out about the future very quickly. It doesn't need to be taken by a story.
How many people, when Trump was elected, predicted that he would be impeached? Right at the beginning.
Well, yeah, lots of people did. But that's based more on his personality than any kind of foreseeing than anything else. It was probably the people who knew him really well that were saying, this is not going to go well. Anyway, we'll see about that. Okay, so we've talked about the Wren Boys. Now, what about the mummers and the mummering? Because that's also around at this time of the year. And I know you do that too, Laurie. Do you dance and mummer and...
Well, that's what we did as Wren Boys.
Oh, yeah.
That was mumming.
Is it?
Yeah, and it's also done in Newfoundland still, and but
now I wonder why
that's
it would
Celtic roots.
That's from the
Yeah.
Celtic roots in Newfoundland, because
yeah.
Newfoundland has a Norse history as well, does it not?
They didn't stay.
Oh, okay.
They didn't stay.
Vikings wander.
Yeah.
They just
Norsemen wander, yeah.
They came and went, and then it was the Irish that really colonized Newfoundland.
Okay.
So I guess they could put up with it.
Well, they say back about 50 years ago, the only thing keeping Ireland from being a third world country was the weather. So, okay, so this is in Newfoundland, and they did a lot of mummering there. And it's an old Christian custom from England and Ireland. Mummering is a version of its modern form. It can be traced back to the 19th century in Newfoundland. That's pretty cool. 1819 when it comes back here. And it depended on the community how formal the aspects of the tradition were, such as the mummers' play having largely died out, and the informal visiting of houses that remains the predominant form.
Lots of European mummering goes on, and definitely pre-Christian. We're talking about that century in Newfoundland being started. Well, that's when Newfoundland was colonized, basically.
Yeah.
So they didn't have any mumming before people came from Europe to.
There's a historical fact.
Come on, those deers were mummering.
I don't think that the unfortunately decimated indigenous population, which the Beotics are now extinct, did mummering. It's very, very European. So, yeah, It didn't originate in Newfoundland at all.
No, but it has that's what they're saying. It was predominantly here, even though there was an incident in 1861 when
before Newfoundland was even Canada,
masked mummers were murdered by Mercer had been murdered by a group of masked mummers on December 28th, 1860. And so after that, they passed a bill that said it was illegal to do the mummering with masks and costume.
They had it in for Mercer, right?
Yeah.
Oh, good way of getting rid of him. No one knew who did it.
Yeah.
It's an Agatha Christie plot.
It is.
They all had masks on.
Then.
Who had the knife?
And then they said in the 1980s it was revived. Isn't that interesting?
80s.
Took all that time to get it back on course and realize what it was. And now it's part of Newfoundland and Labrador's intangible heritage, cultural heritage.
Uh-huh.
Isn't that interesting?
It's so 1980.
Yeah.
It's so ancient.
It's so ancient, but it was banned because of this, you weren't allowed to wear the costume and everything.
Because you could get away with murder.
Right.
Right.
Because you were in costume, so they didn't know who did it.
Yeah.
Oh, good grief.
Yeah.
I suppose that's where the tradition of Christmas caroling came from.
It was mummering, yes,
Yeah.
because you go door to door, and
Yeah.
we would do that in Toronto before.
Yeah,
don't
we
see
did
it
it all the
much.
time when
Yeah.
we were kids, and people gave you stuff. They either gave you something to give to a charity organization, or we had one
Or
mom who came
cookie
out
or-
with hot chocolate with ice cream on top for everybody because we were freezing to death.
Yeah.
I didn't even want to drink my hot chocolate; just hold it in my hands to keep my hands warm. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So these traditions that we think are, they've just been there, and no one really looks into why. They're ancient, and they're tons of fun. I don't see many people going caroling. My daughter invited me. She phoned me yesterday and said, if you want to go caroling, we're going Wednesday night in Newmarket, and we're just doing this whole subdivision, and they're all U of T opera students.
Oh, wonderful.
So the caliber of music is going to be
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
And I said, what am I supposed to do? Sing with us. Oh, really?
You could hold the
Candles.
no,
the
no,
book.
I'd say no, not
The bag for the goodies.
Oh, that's true.
The recorder.
Oh, the recorder. I could do that too. Yeah.
The tape.
Video.
They can't tape anymore.
Video
but
them.
with your,
I could
your
dish out the
phone,
little
on your phone.
hotties for their gloves to keep their hands warm.
You could do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we had a whole lot of musical theater people, and as soon as it would be a beautiful snowy night in Toronto, that just one of those before Christmas when the flakes are coming down softly, and we just get on the phone. Those were the days of phoning. And we'd say, come over to my place, bring some wine, bring some eggnog, whatever. We're going caroling. And we just do the neighborhood. And they'd say, well, what are you raising funds for? We'd say, nothing. We're just bringing joy. We just love to sing. And so sometimes they'd give us a little treat or something. We thought maybe we should get organized and collect for maybe the theater group or something, but that would be too much work.
And you remember back in the day, the Salvation Army used to have caroling. They
Yes.
never had their little pot with just a bell dinging.
Oh,
They
they
always
are
had
singing.
carolers behind them. And now this year they've taken it one step more modern. You can now tap your donation. Isn't
Oh,
that
saw that.
something?
I saw that.
You can tap your
So they
donation.
can't jingle the coins in the buckets like
They used to. And then now they have just the bells. Somebody standing there with bells going,
Tap here. Oh,
Yeah, I saw
Tap.
that.
I love the Salvation Army, but
so do I, but that to
But
me is like,
that's sad. I know.
But I was in England, and one of the homeless people there with his bucket, and I was like, sorry, no. And he's like, oh, you can tap. It's like, wow, this is a business.
It really is sometimes, isn't it?
Well, my dad's in a retirement home in Cannington at the Bon Air. It's a lovely, lovely place. And Salvation Army was just in yesterday. And they get little gifts from them, lip balm and things that people need, It was lovely. And they didn't have a choir. In fact, the school choir was supposed to come, but their work to rule. So
Right.
Didn't
happen.
The kids they couldn't sing, but they have lots of choirs. So since we're talking about singing and caroling, one thing I've noticed, and it's quite marvelous, is part of your brain will hold music longer than anything else.
Oh, for
music
sure.
and the words to the songs. So we have a woman who literally doesn't know which room is hers, when was breakfast, that her husband has passed away and he's not going to visit her anymore. And her memory is gone. She's got a most beautiful voice, and every time we're singing, I will go over and we'll sing Christmas carols together. And she knows all the words still, she knows all the tunes, and she's happy.
I know, isn't it beautiful?
Yeah.
Music is such a lovely
Yeah.
thing. I know a woman who's a neurologist, and I was talking to her about expressive arts and using art to help people express themselves and all this. And she said, do you know that of all the modalities, of all the arts, music has the most profound effect on the brain?
Yes,
It really does. And they've done all kinds of studies with the Alzheimer's patients. We had one lady actually, when my dad was in the home with Alzheimer's, we'd sing the Christmas carols and we'd sing songs all the time. And she would never participate. And I went over to her one day and I asked her, about who she was and where she was from. And she had this little Caribbean accent. And I said, "Oh, I love your little accent." And she said, "Well, back home in Jamaica." And she started telling me about Jamaica and Kingston and how much fun they had at the beach. I'd been to the same beach as she had been to because my mom's family's from there. And we started talking. And as I was driving home, I realized that's why she doesn't participate in any of the music. It's not her song. She didn't grow up with Frank Sinatra. She didn't grow up with all this stuff.
Yeah.
I downloaded a whole bunch of Harry Belafonte and put it on my phone, took it back in. And doesn't she, for the first time in 3 years, put her purse down that she clutched to her every day, sit straight up in her chair and start singing.
Absolutely.
And she said to me, "Those are the good old songs.
Yep.
Those are the nice songs,
Yes, yes.
Yes, they
you
are.
You just have to get the key.
Got to get the right song.
The key to open that memory. And, oh, yes.
And that's what Christmas music does. I think that we've all heard it. It doesn't matter what religion you are. When you've come to Canada and you listen to a radio, you've heard all the Christmas songs. Sometimes too many, but times. But, it's just wonderful. Brings back all kinds of great memories, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. We have a group, Drumming for Health, in North Durham, and it's put together with the Brock Community Health Center. And so we take the drums over to the old folks, and it is really interesting. The people who were nonverbal, every time that I've seen them, will open up and say things while they're drumming. And we did Christmas carols the last time we were there, and I thought, oh God, how do you drum to Silent Night, really? We did, and it worked. It was fabulous. It was really neat because you could just do just a very low beat.
Yeah.
And then you could also use your fingertips and make a little tiny
plunking sounds. Yeah.
It was magic.
Well, Silent Night is the only Christmas carol that was actually written for guitar. It's never written for the full orchestra and the piano and the rest of it like most Christmas carols were. So it was written on guitar for guitar.
Oh,
interesting, huh?
That's new to me. That's good.
Isn't it nice? It's kind of fun when you put the different instruments to different things, and drumming can be such a powerful thing. It really can be. And it does kind of get you right deep in your soul.
It's your heartbeat.
It is.
It is.
Ta-dum, ta-dum.
Yeah.
You hope it is anyway. That rhythm.
I am not a drummer. I fake it because I cannot do it, but I can do a lot of things really well. Drumming is not one of them. It puts me into trance like that.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Well, there's the power of the drum then if it puts you right into trance. Isn't that
just
funny?
Does something different.
Okay. So with your background, and you have the seers in your background, Betty Jane, and you have the Wiccan studies that you've done, how does your Christmas look? Do you celebrate Christmas?
Yes. When I had children, I decided that it was going to be up to them to decide which path they wanted to follow. Mm-hmm. My choice was made for me, so I thought I didn't want to do that to my children. Right. So they could choose whatever they want. And so we do. We do Yule. We do Yule on the 21st, and generally that's a big party with family and friends. And it's always been the Vikings, the heathens, the Asatru, whatever you call them, that does that. So the Germanic, northern traditionalists that have done whatever we do for the ritual. And then all family.
So what do you do for the ritual, if you don't mind sharing some of it?
It depends, because it's always been... For us, it's always been Guillaume, because he's always been the one that's led it, and he's always done it. It's been it's typical ritual, I guess. But there's been a toast to the gods. There's been a little bit of healing scent, but it's basically working. I'm going to say in a circle. Well, they don't necessarily work in a circle. That's just how it works in a house. We candles and fire and all of those things, and then there's feasting. Christmas is just Christmas, where we do the Christmas Eve, and Christmas Eve is always a gift. It used to be, and I learned very early on that with Christmas Eve gifts, you don't make it something complicated like the game of Mousetrap or Lego, because the kids want to do that all night and you'll never get them to sleep. Right. So it was always being pajamas, something like that. It's kind of boring but necessary. And then we just do the typical Christmas morning. So it's not been anything out of the ordinary, but we always do both. Mm. And that way the kids will have the choice. Now my kids are older now, we still do both. So traditionally, Yule starts on the 21st. You do your ritual, you have your people over, you honor the ancestors. For me, we've always done that. I tend to not work. By work, that's where I'm doing my psychic Spidey sense stuff. I don't tend to do that at Yule because I'm all about the party. Then I don't want to be working. Do you really want to work at your Christmas party or your Yule party? No. So I don't do it then. I take the day to myself, and then I make my gingerbread, whereas you're making your shortbread and things like that. It's very personal. We send healing to whoever needs it in the group. We toast to the gods. Things like that. And we go in a little bit about the history and the Oak and the Holly King and things like that. And that's something we introduced about 3 or 4 years ago.
Who's the Holly King?
So the Oak King defeats the Holly King at Christmas as the nights are getting a little bit shorter and the days are getting longer. So it's up the battle.
It's the battle of the light.
Yes.
So
You're going to
lightsabers.
speak on this. I know you are.
Lightsabers have been around since before
Absolutely.
Star Wars. And you don't think it's a coincidence that
It's
there's
so
a
funny that
lightsaber battle?
you say that, because the first time I sort of told my husband that I explained about witchcraft and Wicca and all the things that I sort of did, he looked at me and he went, "Oh, so it's sort of like the Force in Star Wars." And that's what he did. And then, of course, when you read the Mabinogion, it kind of is the plot of Star Wars. The battle.
What?
It's a Celtic tale. And so
It's called what?
The okay, I've got to get this right. Do you want to help me?
No.
Okay. Mabinogion.
Mabinogion.
I can say it.
It's Welsh.
Welsh, yeah. I can say it if I don't
Figures.
think about it.
Welsh
Yeah.
honestly, they must have the strongest tongue muscles in the world, because that language, to get your face around it, is really something spectacular.
I just have to say it very quickly. Mabinogion.
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 Yeah.
Mabinogion.
Does that have anything to do with eggnog? Probably not.
No, probably not.
Okay.
There's different branches of it and things like that, so you have to really get into it and read it. And I haven't read enough of it to but I've read the condensed versions, and
The condensed version.
yeah,
In a
and even
nutshell,
then,
then.
it's the plot of Star Wars.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so the battle of light and dark.
Interesting, because when I first saw Star Wars, I always said to my friends, and I said, "This is the Lord of the Rings, just in modern day times out
Pretty
in
well.
space."
Absolutely.
It's the same story.
Absolutely.
So there you go. It's been around for a long, long
It
time.
has.
They say that we only have 7 stories in the human existence, and that we just retell the same 7 stories with different characters over and over and over again. Interesting when you think about that one. I'll leave you hanging on that before we
Boy,
take
do
our
we
next
plagiarize.
little break. You're listening to Fresh Waves, and we'll be back right after this, so stay tuned.